Hey, everybody. On this episode of the Ethics Experts, we're talking to Joey Price, and you're going to love this one. We talk about Iron Man, we talk about AI, we talk about the ethical application of it, we talk about imposter syndrome, we talk about how to build more ethical cultures, which is my all-time favorite topic. Hope you guys enjoyed this one.
Welcome to the Ethics Experts, where we're elevating ethics and compliance and HR to the strategic level it's supposed to be.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the Ethics Experts. If it's your first time joining us, welcome. And if you are a returning subscriber, hey, bestie, hope you're having an amazing day. You know, the world is a much better place because you're a part of it. You see what happens when you subscribe to the Ethics Experts? You get a bonus greeting on every single episode. So hit that subscribe button as we change the world by fixing our workplaces. I am here with a really great guest. His name is Joey Price. He is the president and CEO of Jumpstart HR. This is an outsourced HR company that focuses on domestic organizations, and we're going to be diving in on a bunch of stuff. He runs a weekly podcast called While We Were Working, and he is an avid non-pro golfer like myself. So I stay more on the putt-putt side. It sounds like he spends a little bit more time on the actual links, but how's it going, Joey? Great to see you today, buddy.
Man, I'm great to be here, and I've got to come up with a new name for my podcast listeners because yours are besties, and you set the bar pretty high. So I got to think about that.
They're all my besties, man. I got a bunch of besties out there. Tell me a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah, While We Were Working is a show that we do once a week. It's put on by my company, Jumpstart. I'm one of the hosts. We also have our consulting practice manager who gives kind of like a point counterpoint for our shows. And the purpose of it is to cover all of the HR topics that you might have missed while you were busy working. So whether you're an HR pro, whether you're a leader who manages people, it's a place you can go to get a deep dive on one article or one trend a week, and our Consultants Corner, where we talk about one big issue and go deep. So it's full of practical insight, banter, good conversation. So check it out.
Little debate in there sometimes, it sounds like.
Yep.
I love it. So tell me a little bit about how you got into the HR game, because now you're running this, outsourced HR service. You have this podcast. I'm sure when you were a young kid, you weren't even thinking about HR. Tell me about the route you took to get here.
Man, when I was a young kid, I didn't even know what HR was. I got into HR because, let's back up to college. College, I was in kinesiology. That was my major. It's exercise science. I was going to be a sports medicine doctor or athletic trainer, travel the world with a pro team, help them win some trophies, help athletes perform at their best level, help professional athletes perform at their best level. I knew I had the giftings and the passion to see people unlock that next step. Mm-hmm. And then I hit freshman chemistry in my freshman year. And I was like, wait, if more chemistry is a part of the journey, I've got to pivot real quick. So I still loved this idea of helping people reach high performance. I just didn't love the odds and ends that came with doing that in the medical side. So somewhere around my junior year, I was like, okay, I don't like chemistry. I don't think I want to tape up athletes for the rest of my life. What do I do with all this time invested in my college career? So I was talking with some friends and they said, hey, you should consider HR. And I was like, okay, great. What's that? But I found some people who were in the field. They latched onto me as a mentor. And from there, I just kind of pivoted. So my first job out of college was HR assistant, kind of administrative office coordinator at a law firm in DC. And while I did that, I got my graduate degree in human resources. And so it's just been this progressive journey of first identifying what is this world of HR, and then finding out through conferences, meeting people, seeing the transformation that I've made as a professional and that our company makes, that, there's nothing else that I'd rather be doing than helping corporate leaders unlock that next step.
Yeah,
so
it's kind of
a full circle thing.
Yeah, you're kind of taping up the ankles for companies now. You know what I'm saying? So the companies can perform a little bit better. It's kind of crazy. Like when we get into college, it's like we have no clue what we want to do. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I felt that same way. I wanted to be a plastic surgeon. I got weeded out in chemistry as well, and I was like, I ain't doing chemistry, man. This is not for me.
So you're my bestie now.
See,
you're my bestie.
We made it. We did it. But there's all these different like rivulets out of these courses of study that we take that like you just don't even know about. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes it's not until you're like in in your first job, when you start finding out about something, you're like, oh man, I wish I knew about that early. How lucky that you kind of got linked up with something that resonated with you at such a deep level that you were able to go to graduate school and end up building a practice around it.
Incredibly lucky. I am in my mid 30s. The gray hair probably makes you think I'm a little bit older. The face probably makes you think I'm a little bit younger, but I'm in my mid 30s. And I still to this day have friends who are my age and even older who are not trying to reinvent themselves, but invent themselves.
Yeah.
And so I really am fortunate. I'm blessed to have found a profession that I could commit my life to and see the transformation, not only that's impacted in me, but that I've gone on to help with other businesses along the way.
So when you got into it, when did you have that light bulb moment that you were like, this is it? Was it in undergrad when you started kind of learning about it and seeing like, man, this might be a great application of this heart I have for helping people? Or was it really when you kind of got into the real world, as they say, at that law firm and kind of seeing how it actually worked?
So it was a little bit of a weird thing. I'm gonna give an answer you might not expect. It was social media once I got into the real world. Because what happened was I'm a nerd. So I want to find all the blogs, all the articles, all the things. And it wasn't until I found an HR community online. Back then, it was Twitter and LinkedIn were very popular. And it was there where I started to be exposed to so many amazing things that you can do as an HR pro. That turned into attending conferences. That turned into just kind of like being in a Michael Bay movie of fun things you can do. And I know this sounds crazy, but I'm talking to my people, I'm talking to my bestie. There are so many great things that I realized that, hey, if I just like got through the grind of being the low man on the totem pole, once I got into my career of being a strategic leader, a strategic advisor, the world is my oyster as far as the ways that I can impact companies. And so it was really when I got to meet that external network of people who are doing things that I wanted to do, but I didn't know exist. So that was the moment for me. Somewhere in that, like after the second job, when I got into the social media community of HR.
Isn't that interesting though? Like once you start, there's this thing called mimetic desires. And when it's essentially like you end up absorbing the desires of the people around you. So if you're surrounding yourself with a bunch of drug addicts, pretty soon you're going to like, I want to do some drugs, right? If you're surrounding yourself by a bunch of, top performers, you want to achieve those same kinds of goals. And it's kind of cool how really getting involved with that, with these networks essentially allowed you to sort of virtually surround yourself with people that opened your mind up to this vision that you said, wow, the world is my oyster were the words you use, right? Like now I have this vision. Now you can really start running at something. That just kind of speaks to the importance of surrounding yourself with like-minded people that have similar goals and want to make that similar impact, because that can open up so many doors and windows and, different opportunities.
Yeah. I mean, the saying is true that your network determines your net worth.
Yep.
And so many times we can listen to that statement begrudgingly and thinking like, life is not about, how much money I make, but we fail to realize the beauty of it. It's not just your net worth of money, it's your net worth of experience. It's your net worth of opportunities that exist and are out there. It's my goal as a young parent to make sure that my kids are exposed to more things than I was exposed to, because I want my ceiling to be their floor. And so that's the quality and the beauty of having good networks, good relationships, and just meeting new people.
So when did the light bulb turn on for you in terms of saying, I want to start a practice and maybe tell us a little bit about, your organization, Jumpstart HR, and tell us like the birth of that vision, because you're kind of this unicorn. You're an HR person. You're an entrepreneur. You're a father. You're apparently a terrible golfer. How did that? I'm playing. I can only say that because I'm the worst golfer. I'm the worst golfer. So tell me about like the birth of that dream and kind of the gap you saw in the marketplace that Jumpstart HR is filling.
Yeah, so I feel like this is kind of like that, like Guy Raz, how I built this moment. But There was one job that I had. I was working for a company that was headquartered here in the DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia area, but we had 1,500 employees. And these 1,500 employees were all across not only the country, but Puerto Rico, Guam, so like US territories and the US. So at the time, I was an HR pro who was at a managerial level. People would call me for questions and answers. And I just found it really exciting that any given day, any given moment, I could be talking to our team members that were working at the White House, team members that were working in Seattle, Washington, San Diego, California, Guam. And I just loved that it helped me stay on my toes to learn all of the HR law and compliances in those areas. And so I said, if I could do this for the rest of my life, I'd be set. But I didn't want to do it, just in one organization. I wanted to impact hundreds of companies in that very same way. And so that was the birth of the idea, was to have this, fractional shared service model sort of approach, but at scale for businesses across the US who need HR expertise, but maybe they don't have the budget for full time. And so whatever that looks like for our clients, we're able to fulfill their needs. And so that's where it all started. And then from there, it was a journey from, you know, learning to be an HR professional to then also learning how to be an entrepreneur, a business person, a salesperson, a marketing person, all those other hats you wear when launching something special.
So, some little birdies after they hatch, they just want to spread their wings and they jump right out of the nest. Some, that mama bird has to sort of push them. Jumping out of the nest in terms of like starting a business, that can be a very scary thing. I'd love for you to walk me through a little bit of like what that journey was. You had this idea, you had this vision of kind of being this fractional, HR pro, filling this gap in the market. But how did you turn that dream into, an actual business? Now you have a website. Now you're a CEO and a president and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, I didn't feel official until I had a website, so that was definitely a part of it. But it was definitely a slow walk, and then having to be pushed out of the nest. So the origin story is obviously learning, growing HR, getting my master's degree in human resource management development, this idea being implanted in my brain. But from there, it was very much like behind the scenes. I had a website, but I wasn't, I was working somewhere else full time, but I was writing blogs. So I was sharing with the world some practical tips and guidelines of what HR should look like. And I was doing it through this company that didn't have customers yet, but we were actively building social presence. And so I would write religiously. I probably did a blog a day, like, Monday through Friday, a new post. Um, but the last place that I worked before I started the business full time, they had hired me in to become the HR director. But what I didn't know is that their current HR director was out on FMLA. And so I get there and the miraculous thing happens. She gets well very quick. And so you can't have, two cooks in the kitchen. If they were to let her go, it would have been a discrimination issue because of age and then,
Jeez.
bringing this young guy in. So I got let go. They couldn't have two cooks in the kitchen. But before that, I'd already built a relationship with a really amazing mentor who had an established HR practice. And he said, "Hey, you left the job on Wednesday. I want you to start with me on Thursday. Make sure you go to the bank, get all your bank accounts set up. We're going to pay you through your business. You'll contract for us, and you'll start to get your wings." So that's
Wow.
how it started. Yeah. And I was like, okay, great. I could do this forever. I never have to get any new clients. But then it was about like 6 months. He said, okay, you ready? Project's ending. And the rest is history with regards to business development and getting new clients that quite frankly I've never shaken their hand, which is pretty cool.
That is pretty cool and that's pretty wild. But how lucky to have that mentor to help kind of incubate you and give you sort of this on ramp into this entrepreneurial endeavor that you're doing now years later.
Yeah, I would say luck for sure. But for the HR pro who's watching this or listening to this, and it's like, oh, I wanna do what Joey's doing one day. I would say it does take some intentionality. Like I forget who said it, but there's a quote that says, "The future belongs to those who create it."
Mm.
And so if you are listening to this and you're like, "Oh, I'm working somewhere, it's cool, but I want to start a business one day," find people who are the blueprint of what you want to do, and kind of full circle moment with our conversation starting, that becomes your network, and they can help you envision and see what are the habits you need to have,
Yep.
what are the goals you need to be setting, what are the things you need to learn, what are the things you need to stop doing, and then what are the things you need to be preparing for 30 days, 60 days, a year, 5 years, to set yourself up for future success. So luck for sure, but also being intentional is key.
Yeah, that intentionality, that preparation allows that luck to even be taken advantage of, to your point. And
Yep.
there's nothing that entrepreneurs like talking about more than their experience and sharing the wisdom and trying to help another entrepreneur avoid some of the pitfalls. And
For
so if
sure.
you're thinking about doing something, I would imagine it's more than a 50% hit rate of reaching out to an entrepreneur and having that kind of a, honest conversation. They would, I think more than half would have that conversation. At least that's been my
Yep.
experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And we get in our own way sometimes, that imposter syndrome or
Totally.
that doubt or anxiety of like, oh, I don't want to reach out to this person. They're too busy. But if you frame it just right, people love reaching out. You can say,
Totally.
hey, uh, 15 seconds, just wanna ask you a question, or 15 seconds. Like, I've already done some legwork and research, but this
Hmm.
15 minutes is just to introduce myself. That's opened many doors for me, and I would encourage people to do that as well.
You just talked about imposter syndrome, and I'm so fascinated by it because it's something I've struggled with my whole life. What lessons have you learned in dealing with that? Because I don't think any of us will ever get to a point in our lives where we don't have those pangs of anxiety or that negative self-talk that bangs up against our brain saying that, like, oh, maybe I can't do this thing. What hacks have you worked out in, like, helping to extinguish those negative feelings that can really paralyze us?
Yeah. I'm glad you said it. It doesn't go away. But what you can do, like any of the voices in your head, is determine what you feed. And so you can either feed your fear or you can feed your faith. And so if you feed your faith, to me, that looks like being mindful of the things that I consume, right? So if I'm in a funk, I'm not watching, train wrecks and dumpster fires on Instagram. I'm trying to look at things that are inspirational. I'm trying to look at videos and snippets from business mentors and people who post really good motivational content. Uh, I surround myself with friends who we have healthy ambition, so that I say, oh, if it's possible for them, it can be possible for me. I also have people who look up to me as a mentor, and that helps me give perspective of like, I have come from a ways, and I do have something that people would love to learn about and become one day. And regular exercise, exercise. Obviously, an exercise science guy, so that's going to be my go-to. But that just gives you the endorphins. It's a mood lifter. It
Hmm.
helps you stay out of bad habits. And so, those are some of the things that I do pretty prescriptively to fight imposter syndrome. But at each new level and each new challenge, that voice tries to get louder.
Yep.
It tries to get deeper, kind of like, Luke, I am your father. Like it tempts you, it torments you, but you gotta push past it and know that it's not real.
Yeah, you got to know it's not real. And I think just knowing that it's always going to be there allows it to feel smaller.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like, if it's always going to be there, then you just have to figure out a way to, like, deal with it all the time. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
those hacks you have, I think, are great. You said, again, there's this sort of thread of intentionality that I see in you. And, I'm just kind of getting to know you, but, like, this thread of intentionality, you said, I'm really conscious about what I'm consuming. And, we have screens on our windows at our house so that, like, crap doesn't fly in, and, like, critters don't get in, but, like, we don't put those same screens, so to speak, over our eyes, and we don't many times, like, you can't control what's coming down your feed. You know what I'm saying? You can't
Hmm.
control what you're scrolling through, and before you know
Yep.
it, there's and when you couple that with the sort of like inherent like negativity bias that all humans have, odds are there's going to be some crap that kind of gets into your house, into your headspace, you know? I love that idea of, you know, seeking out the type of content that's really gonna reinforce it, because it's an ongoing battle. Like Zig Ziglar said something like, motivation's great, but it's like a shower. You have to do it all the time. You have to continually try to motivate yourself, because it's more about a habit than it is. Like the habit is what can reinforce the mindset. It's not like flipping a switch and saying, "Okay, I'm a motivated person." I think the people that are most motivated, to your point, are those who make a commitment to staying motivated and make a commitment to pursuing this vision and do the types of habits that you're talking about to, you know, I don't know, like build a hedge around themselves, build a hedge of protection around themselves to make sure that their odds of hitting those goals are higher.
Yep.
So you also said something else that kind of resonated with me. This like one a day thing. You said I was writing a blog a day, and you know Kanye West famously made a beat a day for years, and Jerry Springer, you know, famously he would write a joke a day for years. And it's interesting how that just daily, you know, the commitment to the daily production of some kind of content or of honing your craft really does stack up over time. As you were going through, like as you kind of jumped into that commitment of doing a blog a day, how did you battle through the inevitable lack of motivation to say, man, this isn't getting any traction or this isn't getting any likes? Like, how did you think about that like endeavor? Were you like, I'm going to do this for a year, or what? Kind of walk me through that one a day thing, because I think it's so powerful, you know?
Yeah. So great question. And I will say that that season paid off a ton for our business, because I am certain that I could go back to that level of consistency that I had with the blogging. Now we do podcasting. It's a week. I'm older. I got kids. Life slows down, whatever. But we are on first page of Google for many of the search terms that are related to HR outsourcing or small business consulting. And it's all organic. Didn't pay to be there. Didn't hire the major SEO firms. But it was that consistency of every day posting something that adds value and making sure it passes the who cares test. But when I was in that moment, if I could be incredibly honest, it was a lot guided by fear, right? Like I wasn't a salesperson. I wasn't going to cold call, but I was like, I'm not going to cold call, but at least I've got to have some habit. I've got to have some way of introducing this out to the world. So, and at that time, us was me.
Right.
So,
The royal we.
I'm
Yeah,
writing
exactly.
writing these blogs as a means to say, well, I'm not going to call 50 companies today and be rejected by 40 of them or 45 of them, but I am going to share this post, get it out in the ether, and maybe through hashtags or Google searches or what have you, people will see that it's important, and then they'll link back. And I've had some cool experiences as a result of that. Being in a textbook, being quoted in a textbook
Wow.
is like, as a nerd, like that was pretty cool. And of course, speaking and traveling to speak and all that stuff, because people have heard my thoughts and they wanna hear more of that, but just in their rooms and spaces. I did a TEDx talk in May of this year.
Oh, cool.
And a lot of that was from, the ethical way to manage AI at work. And so just having more of those conversations, I'll be writing more about those more frequently. But truly, it was more about harnessing fear in a way that was fruitful. And
Yeah.
so it was fruitful to write a blog. It wouldn't have been fruitful to just hide and not do anything. But companies do that, unfortunately. Companies do that. Yeah.
Yeah, they do. And, I guess that's why some of the content that comes out feels so hollow. Your content is not hollow because it's actually coming from your heart and it's coming from your brain, and maybe it's that fear fuel or whatever you want to call it. I also think, or I don't think, I'm going to ask you, how much of your sort of exercise background allowed you to really establish this like one a day habit? that it was really kind of a long tail game, right? Like, I mean, if you're bodybuilding or you're trying to get in shape, that's not like I do it for 2 weeks and then I see these massive results. Do you think that any of that was related?
So I won't just pin it just to the exercise piece or the exercise science background. I'm also a musician, and I've been a musician since I was 13. My mom came to me and she was like, "You're playing an instrument in church. Pick one." And I just picked the one that nobody else was playing. Then I could play more and wouldn't have to wait my turn. Um, but with music as well, it teaches you the discipline of starting when you suck, but just working at it and getting better along the way. So between that and exercise, those have helped counterbalance my true nature, which is a creative. So
Got you.
naturally, I don't follow plans or rhythms or schedules, but I have to do what I have to do to trick myself or put guardrails around or hit specific goals so that I am intentional. Because otherwise, I could be focusing on this thing and then stop halfway, and then
Right.
this thing and stop halfway. So, um, you know, it I have had to take the tools that I've learned along the way in different areas, and trust that that same level of intentionality will pay off if I focus it to this arena of business.
It's so funny, like, some of this stuff doesn't even make sense until you like look in the rear view and see how it all comes together. I'd
Yep.
love to hear about this TED Talk, the ethical application of AI. That's like a lifelong goal of mine to like do a TED Talk. So tell me how that happened and tell us a little bit about that talk. And I think that'll feed in well with, the next thing I really want to dive into is, how do we create an ethical employee experience and how does that kind of, lead into better organizations and better performance and all those kinds of things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so now that I've gone through the process, and we can talk about as much as we want. Now that I've gone through the process, I think anyone who has an idea, don't feel like you have to get to a certain level to, or even be a certain kind of speaker to apply. Because what I experienced is that the folks who do TED Talks, they're kids, they're students, they're grad students, they're alumni of university, they're professionals, they're celebrities. Everyone is in the TED and TEDx ecosystem, contributing some thought to the world. So timing is incredibly important for sure. It's got to make sense for you and your schedule and things like that, because it is pretty rigorous once you get accepted. But the TEDx talk that I did was all about the collaboration between tech and talent, and why we have to work together in order for there to be the best chance of employee success. I talked about getting off of a plane in Seattle, Washington. I was going to a SHRM conference on people analytics. So it's a HR tech conference. I get off the plane. This is 2000. It's January 2000. Sorry, January 2020, before the world shut down for COVID. And I'm tired. I took a late flight. I get to the airport. The only thing that's open is McDonald's, but there's nobody at the front counter. So I'm expecting to, I live in the South. I want to see somebody, say hi, what's going on, man? What's the weather like today? How's everything going? But nobody was at the counter, and I was like, wait a second. If these frontline jobs can be replaced here at an airport in Washington, what does that mean for the communities back where I'm from?
Right.
Baltimore, DC, what have you. And I was presenting in Philly, and so I said, what does that mean for those who work these jobs in communities like West Philadelphia? So, setting the table to get as many people invested in, hey, we've got to be ethical with how we use AI. And so, there's a really cool study that Walmart and Deloitte did together with Procter and Gamble, and they took all of these like warehouse jobs and saw, okay, how can we integrate tech ethically? Can we upskill people? How long does it take? And so I unpacked a little bit of that research, and the overarching theme of what I had to say is basically, if we're going to introduce technology, great, I love it. but we've got to make sure that today's fast food worker is tomorrow's fast food worker robot programmer, because otherwise we're going to leave some people behind, and that's not the best way to do it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. How
uh,
do we avoid that? I mean, that's such a challenge, right? I mean, it's a, yeah, I mean, it's absolutely mind boggling. And we have no idea where, like, the extent to which AI will wipe away jobs like this. I mean, I can't, maybe the actual industrial revolution was, like the original industrial revolution is maybe the last thing that was maybe as disruptive. I don't know. I mean, how do we do it?
yeah, so and it's funny you mentioned that because people think like, oh, this AI thing, it's just for manufacturing, right? It's just about building robots and what have you. But the thing about it is that, you know, back when there was the invention of the wheel, that reinvigorated maybe travel and agriculture. Okay, when you have the industrial revolution, that revolutionizes factories, machinery, producing things at scale. But with artificial intelligence, it impacts hundreds of industries all at once.
Yeah, right.
Uh, I'm not sure when this goes live, but in the middle of the Barbie and Oppenheimer release of these movies, right? These major blockbuster movies that are going to make a ton of money. The writers and actors are striking against Hollywood. And a major part of this is that the writers do not want to uh, be paid less or get less opportunities because production houses can say, oh, we'll just use Chat GPT, or we'll just use artificial intelligence tools to write screenplays, to write jokes, so on and so forth. And actors don't want their name, image, likeness surrendered to a production company that could use their name, image, likeness, voice in perpetuity to do things that they've never done and to say things that they've never said.
Right.
So, imagine if Tom Cruise, lived through forever through AI, but it wasn't him.
Right.
It was just ChatGPT writing a script. Script goes to a tool. Tool gives the acting kind of like Tom Cruise would, right? That's a reality that we're facing,
Totally.
and that's just media. But there are many other arenas where artificial intelligence has the potential to disrupt in many, many meaningful ways. So it's not just blue collar jobs,
Right.
it's not just white collar jobs. Every collar could be disrupted by artificial intelligence.
Yeah, it's hard to think of something that is actually like protected from AI at
Mhm.
this point. Like I'm just saying, like how
Yeah,
pervasive it can be and the applications. We just have no idea that those far-reaching, like what the frontier of this thing is. We just don't even know.
right. Yeah, we're just getting started.
We're just getting started. That actor thing is very interesting and very bizarre. I kind of get why they're protesting because I think they don't even, I think as it's proposed they don't even get like residual going forward for like the continued use of their likeness or something like that.
That's right.
It's pretty nuts. It's pretty nuts.
Mhm.
So how do we like use it responsibly now? Because I mean everyone's kind of tinkering with it. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
everyone's using it to write job posts and write policies and write blogs and all that kind of stuff. How do we, as like business leaders or people within organizations that are responsible, like maybe culture guardians or whatever, how do we like? Do you have any kind of principles that you would say that we should start kind of implementing right away so we don't get into bad habits or let it kind of like grow into
Yeah.
something crazy?
Yeah, it's such a weird time. My main principle now is essentially kind of like the medical like Good Samaritan law of like do no harm. So by that I mean, learn as much as you can about this. Embrace the fact that it's going to infiltrate jobs, infiltrate your customers, infiltrate your life at home. Uh, but try not to leverage the tool in a way that I'm not necessarily about job elimination without distribution. And I say that from like an HR standpoint, not like a political
Yeah,
standpoint.
yeah.
So like I'm not floating in those waters. I'm an HR guy. I want to see people work,
Let's
right?
stay here.
So
Yeah, yeah.
we're in that box,
Yeah.
okay? But yeah, it looks like, for companies using AI to enhance your quality of effectiveness, not necessarily laying off or peeling back staff. Now, if you have to make those business decisions, that's your call to make. I'm not looking at your P&L. You got to do what you got to do. But to the degree possible, just using it as a way to enhance. So
Right.
think about, like, I don't know, going back to the movie world, Iron Man. Iron Man puts on the suit and he becomes stronger, right? So think about AI as like putting on the suit and becoming stronger. Your team members becoming stronger at whatever it is that they do. My team, we do use it to craft emails, but only because the mental Olympics of trying to write things and your brain's in one place and you got another client asking for this, like, yeah, use it to write it, but you've got to edit it, you've got to review it,
Right.
you got to make sure it's saying factual things. So I'd say, do no harm. But then my other thing is like trust but verify. And if you can't verify it, don't trust it. So if you need to cite sources, if you need to include facts, figures, go check those
Double
facts.
check those. Yeah.
Yeah. There's an attorney who blew up for having false case law or case law that didn't exist in his report that he sent to a judge. And so you don't want to be that person. Um, and I think the other thing is just embracing it with an open hand, because I say we're at an interesting place because only I am only aware of the country of Italy and the city of New York City having any form of like significant regulations against artificial intelligence.
Oh,
But
interesting. I don't know about those.
so yeah, so Italy has banned ChatGPT. New York City has some limitations with regard to hiring and recruiting. But I think that more of that is going to come.
Yeah.
So we don't even know the final playing field of artificial intelligence. We just know that it's a tool, it's being developed, it's rolling out in many different instances. And then I think government intervention will put the boundaries around what it's essentially going to look like for years to come. So learn about it, but until government steps in and gives their final thing, I think that we've got to just play a wait and see approach, or proceed with caution approach, because this will come faster than cryptocurrency regulation, though, I guarantee.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Uh,
When you likened AI to the wheel, it's kind of funny to think about like a government or a city state saying like we're outlawing the wheel. You
yeah.
have to kind of approach
Yep.
it with an open hand, but kind of that do no harm guidance, I think is pretty smart. So as we're kind of zooming out to general, ethics in terms of like the employee experience, let's talk about the importance of it and how we see that sort of translating, not just from like a touchy feely rainbows and butterflies thing, which that's the world I live in, just to be super candid. But there's also, I think, a dollars and cents and real kind of objective benefit that comes from living out and really breeding a culture of true ethics. What have you seen, and how do you help direct your clients with respect to like building that culture of integrity as it relates to recruiting or as it relates to sort of general employee experience?
Yeah, my main work comes in two ways. One, it's helping our team adopt AI ethically. And then the other piece is coming on platforms like this and sharing with the world how things will play out. So I'm not directly in client matters, but through our consulting team, they get my DNA, they go on and so I can't speak to necessarily client stuff. But what I tell our team now is what I've said before, like use it, get to learn it, see how you can use it for a competitive advantage. Um, you know, we use Google to search, but we use ChatGPT to help craft intelligent pieces of work. So, an example, we have this new monthly thing that we're doing called Wholesale Thursdays, where it's our approach to inviting the whole entire working population of America to come to this webinar and learn tactics that'll help improve your mental health. Okay, I asked someone on my team to run this. They're not a therapist. They're not a doctor. They're not a licensed medical person. They're a willing person who's committed to seeing this through and owning and running the community around it. So we've got to look at how do we be successful. People need to know about it. We've got to run email campaigns around it. We've got to think of ideas and topics. But my teammate member is doing this in the midst of like consulting with, being a consultant for some of our teams and other life things that they've got going on. So using a chat GPT allows us to compile and create marketing strategies or emails or things that would require a time to maybe sit and think for 8 to 10 hours. You can ask ChatGPT and it's going to source the web to put together like, okay, here are your next steps. You want to do this thing? Here's your next steps. So going back to that Iron Man analogy, like Taryn, hops into the suit and runs her queries and gets the results, and it helps make her better. It gives her more confidence that she can really tackle this initiative. It gives her the satisfaction of seeing the fruits of, running a query, getting a result, editing it, posting it, and seeing people respond to it. So that's on one side. But then the other piece of it too is I think companies need to you should be concerned about artificial intelligence, but you also have to think about the employee experience fact that we get bogged down in the mental anguish of writing
Yeah,
documentation,
right.
of wording it the right way, making it the right length, and your employees want an easy button for that stuff because they don't want to be spending their time crafting emails. They want to spend their time connecting with their whatever it is that they do, maybe learning more about it. So to the employer that's like, oh, we're gonna do a no artificial intelligence thing, right? I don't think that's ethical because then you rob your team members of the ability to step into that Iron Man suit. So there's
That's
many
actually a
sides
pretty
to it.
interesting angle on this, and that's the first time I've heard that kind of perspective on sort of the application of AI and kind of tied down to that employee experience. I think
Hmm.
a lot of the folks that I've talked to that are in businesses, in house, whatever you want to call it, they're most concerned about like the nefarious use of it, or the reliance on something that's not factual, and not really considering how this can really change the employee experience to the better. Because we all have, to your point, we have these aspects of our jobs that we really love: connecting, learning, helping people solve problems, whatever. And then these other aspects where it's kind of this busy work, or you're kind of caught in the weeds, or like you said. I mean, how many times have I anguished over like a 300-word email that it's taken me
Right.
like a freaking hour to write? I mean, it's wild.
Yep. Yep.
So allowing for, I just think it's a very unique perspective that you just had, or that you just shared, because it does open up at least some of the benefits, like the sort of multiplicative benefits that it can have, not just on the employee experience, but also on the culture, which is really just the sum total of how everyone's feeling and believing and acting.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I equate it out similar to when I'm talking to a prospect and one of their objections is, well, I don't know how an outsourced HR company can help build culture in my company. And the first thing I say is, whether HR is in the room or not, the problem people have with HR is that they don't get the job done, or it takes them too long, or they say one thing but mean another, or like there's just some friction to
Yeah.
getting an end result. People just want the result. People just want to engage with HR and then get back to working. So it doesn't matter if they're in the room or outside the room, if they're on your payroll or not. They just want a positive experience with human resources. The same can be said for technology, right? So I had a friend who works for a nonprofit, and he had to plan an event, and he's very good at like the technical side of things, but he's not a creative. So I said, hey, we're at the bar. I was like, hey, man, there's this new thing called ChatGPT. I think it could change your life. Why don't you ask it to give you 10 ideas about this thing that you have to do? And so he put the query in, it gave him some ideas, and it got him going. It got him running with where he needed to go.
Yeah.
So, you know, that piece of the employee experience of saying, hey, I may not be a creative, but my job requires me to think of new ideas. Or, I may have to send 50 emails a day telling people that they haven't been selected for a job. Uh, you can do that with ChatGPT. And obviously, disclaimer, you've got to manage privacy, security,
Right.
safety concerns, all those sorts of things. But if you're just saying, hey, I need to type an email to a candidate that was rejected for a job, I mean, that's not the most like you're not guarding that with Fort Knox level security. You're just getting the mental anguish of, oh, I got to reject another person. You're getting that out of the way. And then you edit the email and then you hit send and you go about your day. So, I think there's a lot to unpack with that side of it, but I have this unique experience because I have the perspective of seeing so many businesses across the US, nonprofits, professional services, technology, retail, hospitality, all the groups that come to us for service and support, and then it being this passionate like technology enthusiast who wants to see the healthy marriage of technology and people at work.
When you're, I don't want you to get into too specifics about particular clients, of course, but let me just share kind of my experience. When I kind of first got into this game and I started to learn about HR, I just thought of it as like, cool, this is a great resource for the humans in the organization. As I've gotten deeper into it, I've started to tune into this friction that you've kind of talked about, where in many organizations or maybe at large, HR is viewed as a way to manage the human resources, the human labor units within the organization. And HR is kind of in this tough spot because they have to be an advocate for the people, but also be an advocate for the company. And I'm sure, idiosyncratically, some organizations are on one side versus the other. But if you were to zoom out from the weeds into a really kind of 30,000 foot view, what do you think is like the biggest like issue that HR could fix that would really allow it to propel forward in terms of the impact it can have on the lives of the individuals that it's responsible for?
We're talking just technology or their
I'm just
lives in
talking
general.
about just in general.
Okay. It's a great question. The biggest thing or the highest level needle that HR could move is removing obstacles that prevent people from doing their job. Um, and that's got like sub tiers under it, but staying all the way up there, HR has a role to empower managers and give them coaching so that employees can do their job. HR has a responsibility to um, research compensation and benefit solutions and strategies appropriately so that people can do their job and not do it begrudgingly, or so that they can do their job and not leave to go somewhere else. HR's got the duty to, yeah, cover benefits so that people feel like they're covered. HR has the duty to um, frame and shape the recruiting and onboarding process so that you don't have regrettable turnover and so that you don't have extended time to hire. So that the highest level, and there are other things I could go into, but the highest level needle that HR moves is removing obstacles so that humans can be resourceful, right? So that they can work and do their job without barriers or hindrances.
That's a phenomenal answer, I think, because it covers both sides of that responsibility that somebody in HR has. Like the organization wants those human beings to be, like you said, resourceful, to be productive in pursuit of that organization's mission. And those individuals, they want those impediments that are in their way to be removed as well. And I think that's a really kind of powerful rallying cry for any kind of HR professional that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go back in time and find a young Joey and give him a piece of advice you wish you had earlier that would have allowed you to magnify your impact even more than you're doing now sooner.
Oh man, drop $10,000 into Tesla shares when it's like $5.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
That'd be a game changer.
Wouldn't that be a game changer? Or like putting a couple grand into Bitcoin when it was at a penny or something like that.
Yeah, when people were using it to pay for pizza.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I saw something on YouTube about that, or on maybe it was Twitter. That's actually, I haven't heard advice like that yet. Everyone's always like, be more confident in yourself, which is good advice, but that actually would be a massive needle mover if you were to do it. So
yeah. I was gonna say, I mean, we all live where we live, and it's by, some might say by God's design, some might say by happenstance, whatever you believe, right? But we live in a capitalist society where one of the biggest needles you can move is your economic safety and economic opportunity that you have and can create for others. And so, heck yeah, if I was sitting on a couple $1 billion of Tesla stock, right, I could transform a ton of businesses and hire more people and so on and so forth. But yeah, I mean, that's not something to shy away from. I mean, there's obviously an answer within HR, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, to your point, profit's not a dirty word, and we all work for money, and we can hold both the impact we're trying to make in the world, the lives we're trying to change in one hand, while also holding, profit or whatever you want to call it in the other hand. Those don't have to be mutually exclusive pursuits.
Yep. Because if you are doing the impact right, relatively speaking, if you're doing the impact right, and you want to push scale, some people are happy where they are, right? So I'm not saying everything's got to grow, but if you're making impact and you want to push that at scale, you're either doing that and you're getting a raise because you're being promoted in a company, or your business is expanding and you're bringing in more revenue that way. So, revenue is the fruit. It's the byproduct of success.
Yeah, it's the output. And to your point, you can only control those inputs. You can't control the harvest, but you can control what seeds you're planting. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So Joey, where can people find you? What's your Instagram? What's your LinkedIn? You are prolific on Instagram. That's for sure. But I think you're a very unique voice. I think you have a really unique perspective. This has been a really fun conversation. Where can people learn more about you?
Yeah, and thanks so much for taking this time. It was a great way to end the day. People can find me on most social outlets at Joey V Price HR. So that's the place where you can find me, and you'll get access to links for pods that we drop. If I'm speaking somewhere, new things that we're doing in the business. You can find our company at jumpstart-hr.com. And the podcast is While We Were Working. So you just type that in and you can get it anywhere from Apple, Spotify, Good Pods, YouTube as well. So we're all over the map, and that's where you can reach me.
I love it. Well, it's been great to meet you. It's been great to spend some time. I'm glad I got a new bestie, and we'll see everyone next time.